What about making your sound better?
When you click on the expert button, you can see the FM matrix. This window here is the FM matrix, and all the settings for the corresponding operator. Because here you can find in the FM matrix the operators from A to F and two special operators X and Z. If you click on them, you can set their properties, or under the expert button, you can click on the individual operators to set all their settings here. So let's talk about how to make a nice FM sound. Now, FM sound is very simple. You want to take one operator and modulate it with another operator. So for example, an operator F, we have a sine wave which goes out from the device. So this line represents the output of FM8, and the line below that represents the panning. So for example, in operator F, I'm centering my sound, but if I drag it up, I can pan operator F sound to the left, or if I drag it up, I can pan it to the right, and if I pan it down, I can pan it to the left. Or if I double click it, I can make it centered again. So as you can see, I'm letting operator F out from the device at 80%, or if I push it up back to 100. And I need another operator to modulate it with. So for example, let's take operator E. And to connect them is very simple, because all I need to do is to drag this square here and apply a value to it. So I'm applying the modulation value, which comes from operator E to operator F. So here you can see this little arrow goes from operator E to operator F. Now, there is no effect here. We can hear only a simple sine wave, because we didn't switch operator E on. So if you want to switch on an operator, you need to right click on it. And now, as you can see, it is highlighted. So we are having 100 modulation from operator E to operator F. And on the spectrum window, you can see that how brighter the sound is than a regular sine wave. So right now we are having only one sine wave, one harmonic going out. But if I modulate operator F using operator E, we generated a lot more harmonics. Especially if I push the ratio up on operator E to 2, for example, or to 3, to 4, you can see here how bright the sound turned into. If we want, we can call in more operators by right-clicking on them. Let's choose another waveform, for example, this time let's say a sixth formant, and route it into operator F, and see how the sound changes. Of course, I can route it into operator E at the same time, and this way we turned our sound into a very noisy kind of sound. Okay, but let's not do this now. What I want to show you is how we can feedback our operators. So let's pull back the modulation. We can see that we are only having one harmonic, and if we feedback our operators, grabbing and turning this square up, you can see how this little arrow goes back into operator F, representing the feedback value. This has a similar effect. With feedbacking your operator, you can generate a very high and very bright kind of sound. This is very handy because, for example, if I take a simple saw wave, like grab this little box and choose and select a sawtooth. Now, this is a very dull sounding sawtooth, which sounds very different than, for example, a serum saw wave or an operator saw wave, Ableton built-in FM synth. So if I want to make it brighter, all I want to do is just add some feedback to it. And as you can see, we just generated a lot more highs. So let's see what we get now. But be careful with it, because we easily can go into noise, okay? So just add like 20% or 30% maximum. It is more than enough to have some decent saw wave. So from this point you can generate very unique and very crazy FM metrics. So let's activate all the operators and select different waveforms, different ratios. I'm just, adding random stuff here. And start modulating all the operators back and forth It doesn't really matter what you do. This is only for demonstrating purposes. Let several operators out. And this is how an FM metric looks. Now, this is very random, so probably we have only noise here, but this is what we made now. Yeah, so it's just noise, and I would say very intonal noise. So this is not a good way to build up an FM metrics, but never mind. Let me initialize the preset again. We have two special operators, the X and the Z operator. The X one, I just right click on it to activate it. And X one is a saturator and a noise operator. So this way we can saturate our input and add some noise to it. Depending on what kind of noise we want, we can filter it, add some resonance, and of course we can set the amplitude. And with the saturator we can choose an asymmetric saturation. We can add some gain to it, you know, to turn a sine wave, which should be a regular input, into a more squarey kind of saturated waveform, and we can add some level to it. And the Z is a filter device, which is very awesome. I pretty love using FM8 built-in filter because you have two filters. As you can see, I can make the difference between the two filters. And I can choose what kind of mode I want to use. The first filter, I'm turning this into a band-pass filter, and the second filter too, like into a high-pass filter. So you can create a very, very cool, like band reject sounding kind of thingy here, like pushing up the resonance and go really crazy, like this kind of wovely kind of effect. So I pretty love using it. You can choose how you want to mix these two filters. Right now I'm letting only the second one out, or if I want, I can let filter 1 and filter 2 out at the same time. And I can set if I want to use a serial kind of chain into a parallel kind of chain of the two filters. So as you can see, I can create very unique looking filter type here. And this is why I love FM8 filter. Okay, so let's dig deeper into operators. So let's stay with the filter module in operator Z. We just discovered the filter. So let's talk about this section here, the amplitude section. We can set the panning, obviously, what you can do here in the bottom line. So as you tweak this knob, you can see that the bottom line value changes along with that. We can set the velocity of the operator and also the level. So as you can see, I'm letting Z out individually from the device, which basically has no sense because operator Z does not have its own sound. So just leave it at 0. And what is more important here is the envelope amount, because if you want to move the filter, you want to activate it and you want to add some envelope to it. So if you use an envelope for the filter, you want to use an envelope amount. So for example, let's say you apply this envelope shape, this envelope curve to your filter movement. You want to add some range, some amount, how much you want to move the filter on this shape, and you can set that value with this knob. And as you can see, the filter curve moves along with this amount. We are going to talk about the envelopes at a later video. We have another window here, which is called the amplitude modulation window. So you can set the amplitude of this dedicated operator, in this case the special operator, operator Z, on these modulators. So we can see the pitch bend up, the pitch bend down, the control 1, control 2, the aftertouch, LFO1, LFO2, the in envelope, and so on. But we are going to talk about the modulations. In short, this is a quick access to this dedicated operator to add values, for example, to the pitch bend up. This is very, very easy because you don't need to go to modulation, find operator Z, and to tweak around in this matrix. It is a lot easier just to go to the operator itself and apply the envelope, so the level, to the modulator what you just chose. So again, we are going to explore this section, the modulation window, a little later, because basically this is the same. Okay, let's go to the X, operator X, which is, the same. You can tweak the settings for the operator. You can find some modulation, easy access modulation window for the amplitude of the dedicated operator, this time operator X, and the envelope. You can set the output level, the panning, and the velocity in all the other operators from A to Z, you can find a ratio, an offset, and a waveform window, which is, different than we found in operator X and Z. Because the quick access modulation window is the same and the envelope window is the same too, along with the amplitude, because we can find the output level, the panning, and the velocity. So let's talk about only these little windows here. So your first question would be, what does this ratio mean? Now it is very simple, because with ratio you double the frequency. So right now we are multiplying our frequency. For example, if you use a C0, you can double the frequency. If you click on ratio 2, if you click on ratio 3, you can multiply your C0 frequency with 3, or then with 4, 5, and so on. Now what you really want to know is every number divided by 2 is an octave. And this is why you can see here the first one is the first octave, then you can go to the second is the second octave. The third octave is ratio 4, the fourth octave is on ratio 8, and on 16th and the 32nd. So you need to keep this in mind if you want to go very tonal sounds instead of intonal sounds. So once again, this ratio only multiplies your note frequency, what you just push down on your keyboard. And you can offset your sound, so fine-tune your sound by hertz using this little window. And the last thing, the waveform selector window. You can decide what kind of waveform you want to use from this drop-down menu. You can see several waveforms here. Or if you drag this little box, you can select very quick and very easily the waveform you want to use. You can phase invert the waveform, you can key synchronize it, and if you want, you can use the dedicated operator for the pitch envelope. So for example, if you are using like 3 operators, operator D, E, and F, and you want to use only F on the pitch envelope, you want to deactivate all the others. And this will result that if you tweak the pitch envelope, so for example, if you add this envelope and you add some envelope amount to it, only operator F will get this information from the pitch envelope. So only operator F will have pitch bend effect, operator D and E will not. And of course you can do this on operator C, B and E, A too. If you created a very nice FM matrix chain, you want to save it, so all you need to do is click here, add the name, like again, Dan Larsson, click on save and find an empty spot, like here, and if you want to call it back, you have the Dan Larsson preset, FM matrix preset. So this is a very handy way, to use your favorite FM matrix settings. So this was all about the FM matrix and the operators, and in the next video we are going to have a look on the envelopes.